Word. Okay, and then I need to screen share, right? Um, okay. And then,
Martin, would you mind to put your data cleanup back to kind of at the behind my part? Is it possible? Yeah, kind of like that. Thanks.
okay, sounds good. Okay, well, I will present here and then we can start. Um, and then just let me know when you want me to move on.
Okay, I think we can start it. Is it okay
Hmm.
for otherwise? Okay. Hi, Dr. Beira. Here's our final presentation, and my name is Wei Chen Lin. But you also can call me Danny. And my group members are Colin, Martin, and Paul, and they have been absolutely amazing to work with. Okay, all right. Let's move on to the first section, Looker Studio application. Okay, and before starting with the analysis, I first clean up the dataset. The original file contains almost 100,000 records. Since text one focused specifically on adults age 70 and above, I removed all rows for kind of individuals under 70 as well as those labeled no. And next, because location is also a key variable in this task, I remove the row with the a no label as well in the location field. After cleaning, I had a little over kind of 10,000 usable records left. I also cleaned up the age column and create a new variable called age num, which keeps only the numeric age. This is the cleaned Excel data showed in the link. Okay, and for text one, I use the Looker Studio to perform the analysis and the visualization. I have included the link in the slides and just here. And I have already placed the visualization into this presentation. My findings can be summarized in 3 points. So first one is injury distribution by product and body part for adults age 70 plus. Inside is the cross tab shows that floors, beds, and stairs are the top injury-related products for adults age 70 plus. Head and lower trunk injuries occur most often, so suggesting a high risk of falls. This indicates a need for better home safety features, especially in flooring, bedroom layouts, and stair design. So the strategy kind of for stairs is kind of add the dual handrails and anti-slip treads and better lining to reduce falls. And for floors, it's kind of remove tripping hazards and apply anti-slip treatments, especially in bathrooms and kitchens. For beds, it's kind of install the bedside rails and add night lights to prevent kind of nighttime falls. Okay. So let's keep moving on. The Lucas Studio continued. So for the second point, the top injury diagnosed among the adults age 70 plus. Inside is kind of the fractures are the most common diagnosis among the older adults, followed by internal injuries and contusions. This shows that the injuries in this age group are both frequent and severe. Preventive efforts should focus on reducing fall impact through the safer home environments and better protective design. For the strategy, I would say the fractures use padding on the shop furniture and reduce the hard impact surface. For the internal injuries and contusions, improve the home lighting and keep the walkways clear of clutter. And also for the bathroom risk, is add the grab bars and not slip mats in wet areas. For the third point is injury frequency by location for adults age 70 plus. So it's kind of inside is the home is the most common injury location for adults over 70. Far exceeding public areas. So most injuries occur inside private living spaces. This emphasizes the need for home-based safety improvements, such as better lighting, anti-slip surface, and handrails, and also clutter reductions. So the strategy for home injuries is kind of prioritize the anti-slip flooring and brighter lighting and clutter-free pathways. So for public area, it's kind of encourage the mobility aids, kind of the can or workers, and non-slip shoes for stability. So for the nighttime, it's kind of you can install the night lights along the hallways, bathrooms, and bedrooms. So for text, and that concludes my part for text one. Now I will hand it over to Martin to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Next up, I felt it would be best to go over the methodology of the data cleanup that Danny previously discussed. So, outlined here, the biggest issue that we ran into in terms of data was that the data was in terms of both years, year, month, and months. So, to do this, we had utilized the text split function to take that and split it up into the numerical amount and then the corresponding years or months value. And then there were a handful of records, about 439, that didn't provide an accurate insight because the age could really have been any value. So we choose to remove those. And then lastly, we applied an integer function to return the integer value of the age in the event where the month age was provided. So this allowed us to get all of the data points in terms of years and not having a mixed bag. Moving on, that puts me into the RStudio application. So, using RStudio, it was really easy to determine which one of the injury types was most frequent, and those two were head, face, internal, and from that, we could run further segmentation analysis to determine that of those head, face, internal injuries, what was the most common associated group. So of those, it was determined that a fall in bed and stair injuries were the most common type. And utilizing the handful of different libraries, we were able to determine that. So from this, we further investigated kind of the causes and the different types of products associated with those fall and bed injuries in relation to the head and face and internal. So from there, we were able to construct a decision tree, and from those, we were able to derive the top three products that kind of resulted in those injuries. And so, kind of to put some rationality to what's going on, flooring or floor materials, these are almost unavoidable. They're everyday parts of life, and children, they're gonna fall, they're gonna stumble, they're gonna get hurt. So, really, we could advise caution to the parents, but we can't really do anything to take the floor out of someone's everyday life. That being said, the most common injury out of all of the injuries that we noticed was bed and or bed frames. These had a very high injury rate, especially at home, as seen by the decision tree above. And so, really, this would suggest that infants, more specifically because this data set focused on those that were younger than 1 year old, infants were falling off of their beds and getting injured. So, one recommendation that we had is that parents should considering purchasing beds that are just far less tall. You're eliminating that option of kids falling from, those heights of 3+ feet, which would, add significant injury. And then next up, there were sofas, couches, things of that nature. These, again, they're another unavoidable part of life. But the injury rates seem to be consistent regardless of location. So, more so, this is just another thing to call out to parents and say, be cognizant when you're setting your children down on a sofa or a couch because, you're going to look away 1 second and boom, they're going to fall over. So, really, a rule of thumb we suggest is that to reduce significant injuries, we should consider changes in the child's environment, tall pieces of furniture, they offer more opportunity for injury. And then passing it on, it will be Colin to go over the Excel application.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yeah, I'll be talking about task three, which was to identify strategies to reduce injury and related to sports. And we looked at basketball and tennis. So on my first slide, we're looking at a data visualization for basketball related hospital visits. And the bar chart and the pivot table together show how the frequency of different body parts are injured during basketball activities. What immediately stands out is the high overall volume. Basketball accounts for 4,858 total injury cases, which is significantly higher than tennis. And the pivot table highlights the body regions most affected. Shoulders are the major category, along with lower body injuries like ankles and knees. That is a commonly result from quick movements, jumping, and player-to-player contact. The bar chart helps us see these trends visually, showing which injury appears the most and how the intensity of play translate to the higher injury rates. Overall, this slide shows that basketball is a high risk sport with when it and a high volume when it comes to emergency room visits. Next slide. Now I'll be shifting to the second slide, which was looking at tennis related injuries, which had a total of 156 cases, so a lot lower than basketball. And tennis is like a much less physical contact sport and a lot less collisions, which explains the reduce in volume compared to basketball. However, the patterns of injury are still meaningful, and the pivot table shows the shoulder injuries appearing again, which makes sense because tennis relies heavily on repetitive overhead motions like serving. We also see some internal or non-specific injuries, and the bar chart helps us visualize how these injury categories compare. Even though tennis injuries are far less frequent, the ones that do occur often relate to repetitive strain and upper body mechanics. So while the sport is lower risk, it's still presents clear patterns that align with the physical demands. And now I'll be passing it off to Paul.
Yeah, move on to task four, I used Tableau to analyze basketball versus football injuries. And for basketball, we found out that fractures, internal injuries, hematomas, and the other impact injuries were often came from landing, collisions, and sudden movements. And for football, strains and sprain were the most common, reflecting high contact plays and tackling force. Next slide. Moving on to the most injured body areas between basketball versus football. For basketball, we found out the head, lower trunk, and fingers were the main areas that got injured. And for football, they found out the foot and other lower body regions placed by placing heavy stress on the feet and legs from cutting, blocking, impact. Next slide. And some strategies to reduce injuries from basketball versus football. In basketball, you should learn how some safe landing mechanics and strengthening ankles, knees, and also using braces. And for football, we use proper cleats and protect lower body gear, and also teaching safer tackle techniques. Thank you, Professor. It's been an amazing semester learning from you, and hope you have a good holidays coming up.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
that concludes our presentation.